Any opposed? None opposed? All right. So I have an explanation to read about our hearing this evening. A public hearing is scheduled for Thursday, January 23rd at 6:30 PM in the county boardroom of the Shenandoah County Government Center, 600 North Main Street, Woodstock, Virginia, for the Shenandoah County School Board to receive the views of citizens within the school district in accordance with Section 22.1-92B of the Code of Virginia regarding the 2025-2026 estimate of monies needed for public schools. Prior to the superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year '26, a public hearing is held to receive feedback from the community. So the Shenandoah County School Board welcomes such public comment, and I'm wondering if there's anybody here to present any request or anything else of us. I'm glad we cut it down to 15 minutes, but
Me too.
it's the sole purpose for our being here. So we will not be able to convene our next meeting until 6:45. So what I think I'm going to do is just adjourn this meeting, but I would ask you to kind of tighten the area. If somebody comes in with that time period, I guess they'd be allowed to speak. So if we just kind of not hang in your seats, but hang around so we can reconstitute ourselves. And in any case, we will reconvene at 6:45. Okay, thank you. Have such a speaker? Shenandoah County School Board welcomes public comment from Shenandoah County residents, parents, or guardians, as well as from current students and employees of Shenandoah County Public Schools. School board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting or hearing. The speaker has up to 3 minutes. I don't think we have to worry about it using 30 minutes from anybody else. All topics should address a matter related to Shenandoah County Public Schools budget this evening. And the school board expects each speaker will be courteous and show proper decorum. And speakers have to speak in the order in which they've signed up. We have one speaker, so I think the speaker who signed up will speak first. Ann, are you ready?
I'm ready. Where do you need to be?
Yep.
Okay. Good to see everybody tonight. I'm here just to continue to advocate for the elementary students because they're too young to know the difference of things that we need. And I think for the first time I realized how important it is to maybe stand up for them. We are busting at the seams. We even had a parent come to our school today, or yesterday, to do a socioculture with one of our student support specialists. We couldn't find a single space for them to go to meet, to have a private conversation. And we ended up displacing an assistant principal who was on the phone trying to have a meeting with someone, and he graciously gave his space up for that. So, and I just wanted to say that the architect facility assessment study, the total that was spent was $316,000 and $150. So $316,150. And what did we get from that? We obviously didn't get any concerns about what was going on at Sandy Hook, and that's why I brought that to light. I think, and then I had no idea what was going on with the swim team. I'm trying to find outside resources, maybe to get a grant for that. But if you look at the money that we have, what more bang for our buck, and what more students would we serve if we put the brakes on the vocational, get another elementary school to alleviate the traffic issues that we have on both campuses, be able to properly renovate the existing elementary schools that we have, and do it for the betterment and the health and the safety and the future of those kids in Shenandoah County Public Schools. I will stand here and I'll be here at every meeting to continue to advocate for that, to advocate for them, to advocate for our teachers who are, most of them are afraid to speak up. They've been quiet for too long, so I appreciate your time. I hope you will consider that in the budget for for the future of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the public comment. So I am going to adjourn the first meeting, and that will be at 6:47 p.m. And we're going to move directly into our work session now. So I'd like to call to order the Shenandoah County School Board pre-budget work session, January 23rd, 2025. And for this meeting, I would also ask for a motion to approve the agenda as it has been presented to us.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Gutschall. Second?
Second.
Mr. Ricker, thank you for that. All in favor of approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? And so we're moving directly into that work session and the whole concept of the budget development process. Dr. Shepard, over to you.
So as I go through these slides, you will notice that many of them seem like you may say, oh, I've seen these before, because you have. You may have seen them on October 28th when we did our pre-budget meeting. But when we get later into the presentation, you'll see my, my thoughts, my focus on our fiscal year 26 budget. So this evening, we're going to talk about division goals, missions, visions, and beliefs. We'll talk about student enrollment, personnel information, budget process and information, and then the fiscal year 2026 budget, next steps, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions. But please interrupt at any time if you have a question so that we can be on it as we are going through the presentation. So our division goals, academic achievement and growth is always at the top of our list. Positive school climate and culture, family engagement, community connections, recruitment, support and retain enthusiastic professionals, and then high quality and adequate facilities and learning environments. The mission of Shenandoah County Public Schools is to prepare each student for a future of lifelong learning, and then you can read through our beliefs there. In our vision, we want to be the best game in town. We want to produce students who can succeed, either whether they go to the workforce, they go to college, 2 or 4 year college, they go to the military. And we want to be the best in Virginia as well. Our beliefs. All decisions are based on the best interests of our students. Meaningful learning occurs only in the presence of meaningful relationships. Continuous growth and improvement are expected for everyone. Atmosphere of respect must exist. So when we talk about student enrollment, you will see in 2012-13, we had a little over 6,000 students. The first line is our kindergarten through 12th grade, and then the second line adds the lighter blue bar there adds in our pre-K students. So you'll notice in 2012-13 we were over 6,000, and then over the last probably starting there in 15-16 we went under 6,000 to 59-28 for our K through 12, and we declined over the next many years, and then we're starting a slight uptick at this point.
Is that taking into consideration the new buildings that they're building in Strasburg and all that, or no?
So it's taking into consideration any new housing that is currently established,
Permitted? Okay.
but these are the students that are actually in our schools at this particular time. In 2020, we had 2021, that was the year of the pandemic. We had a lot of students who actually did homeschool or went to private schools because we were doing a lot of virtual and online learning. So that really started this significant decrease, and then we decreased for the next couple of years, and now we're on an uptick. And then this is just a different way to look at it. So the darker blue line is our September 30th enrollment, and then March ADM is our number at the end of March on the number of students that we have in our average daily membership. So we always start the year with a few more students than our average daily membership in March. So we always lose a few due to moving or whatnot.
Do we know the number, or can we guess, the number of students who have, in quotes, come back maybe from homeschooling, or in other words, you know what I'm saying, somebody during COVID who went elsewhere or dropped on homeschooling and then decided to come back to public school.
We have that number. I don't have it with me, but we have the number of students who went from homeschool back to
So
public
that would
school.
indicate there would be some significant number here that would be increased from those people who kind of came back home. Is that, you think that's an accurate statement? Okay.
Okay, just write myself a note. And you'll look at the enrollment trends in, this is our elementary schools, but notice that we didn't include the year 2020 to 21 because the fifth grade students were at our middle school. So we took those numbers out because it wasn't an accurate reflection of the number of K through 5 students that we had. And you can see Ashby Lee had a slight uptick there between 22, 23, and 23, 24, and that was because we moved the fifth grade students from North Fork Middle School to Ashby Lee Elementary School that year. So there's a slight uptick, and that will be, about the average number of students they have over the next few years. At Sandy Hook Elementary School, you'll see a downward trend. And our third, fourth, and fifth grade are larger than our K-1-2 at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And our K-1-2, I looked at those numbers yesterday. They were in the 100 and, let me think, in the 20s, and then is it 120? Yes, and then our fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. Third, fourth, and fifth grade are in the 250s, 220 and 250. Is that right?
I'm looking right now.
Yeah. And then W.W. Robinson, you'll also notice a slight decrease over the last few years.
The elementary, the K1 and 2 around 120,
Yes.
and then the third, fourth, and fifth are around 140.
Yeah.
They fluctuate, but around 140.
Yeah. So here are our middle schools. You'll notice that North Fork Middle School stayed the same, even 2 years ago, because they traded their fifth grade students for eighth grade students. So the eighth grade students moved from Stonewall Jackson High School to North Fork Middle School. And Peter Muhlenberg, we were meeting with her during for her budget information, and she said that she had an uptick in the number of students over the last couple of years. Look at that, about 200 students, or my mouth is off today, about 80 students over the last year. They have increased. And then Signal Knob is had a slight decline, and then they're pretty stable now. And again, year 2020, 2021 was not included because of COVID grade configurations. Here you'll notice Central High School, slight increase, and then a slight decrease. Stonewall Jackson High School, again, the 22-23 school year to the 23-24 school year, they lost their eighth grade students to North Fork Middle School. And so they'll likely stay stable over the next few years there. There is a few classes at North Fork that are rather small. And then Strasburg High School, pretty stable over the last couple of years. Birth rates kind of fluctuate between 399 and 538 over the last number of years. You will notice in 2020 we had a slight uptick, and then in 2022 that was the lowest number that we've seen since 2000. And then this relates to our kindergarten classes. So took that information and then forwarded it 5 years. So our kindergarten class of 2024 were the students that were the kids that were born in 2019. You'll notice that there were 478 kids born in Shenandoah County in 2019, and this year we had 367 of those come to kindergarten. Next year is our largest, our largest number over the last 12 years. So we should see an uptick in kindergarten students next year based on the number of children that were born in Shenandoah County in 2020. And then we'll see a decline over the next couple of years in kindergarten. Should see a decline in kindergarten students over the next couple of years. For reduced lunch eligibility, a little bit all over the place, but over the last couple of years, we have been receiving information from the Department of Social Services to identify our students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch eligibility. So it's probably a more accurate number than we've had over the last many years.
How much longer do we have that program going? Is it 3 more years or 2 more?
Is it-
It's 2 more years. This is the
Uh-huh.
3rd year of a 5-year.
Okay.
And we can always ask to be included again after that.
So just to
It's-
point out,
Mhm.
this is kind of relevant in the fact that everyone is getting it right now.
Yes,
These
yes,
are the ones that would qualify for it if we didn't have it.
yes,
That's right.
that's correct. Mhm, that is correct. So 100% of our students are getting free breakfast and free lunch due to the CEP program. And we're in year 3 of 5 years, so we'll get it again next year and the following year. And then we can reapply the following year if we're interested in continuing that program. English learners, we have, this will be relevant in a future slide, probably closer to slide 40, a slight uptick in the number of English learners that we have. And you'll notice since 2014 to 2024, not quite doubled, but we're getting there. And then our students with disabilities and our students with 504 plans. I do want to point out that my data comes from September, and if you see Ms. Stratton's data, her data is always from a December 1 count. So we're taking a snapshot at different times of the year. So our data may not actually mirror each other, but it's similar information. And you'll notice a slight decrease in the number of students with disabilities from last year to this year, and also a slight decrease in the number of students with 504 plans from last year to this year. So personnel, this is information that you saw probably in September and October. Teacher retention, we retained almost 82% of our staff, which means that there was an 18.4% turnover. The national average was 23% turnover. That is higher this year than the last couple of years. We had been averaging 14 and 15%. Take a look at this slide in particular. You'll see this on budget requests as well, our budget focus slide. The teachers that we are losing are 11 plus years of experience. So it's our experienced staff. And so, a little over 50% of those of our teachers actually leave SCPS. Those who left have over 11 years of experience.
I think this has been asked before, but
Mhm.
this doesn't count retirement.
It does.
Okay.
It does. And where are our teachers going? So Rockingham, Frederick, and Harrisonburg are the top 3. And just when I compare Shenandoah County, I always compare us to Rockingham and Frederick County because they're always first or second or reverse order to where we lose our teachers to. But I want to point out the little sticky note there on the right that 20% of our new teachers came back to us had actually previously taught in Shenandoah County. So they're returning to us after having gone to another division and taught for a little while, and then they're returning.
Have we asked them why they're returning?
It's various reasons. A husband's job or a spouse's job.
Sorry.
They realized the grass wasn't greener, they didn't like the commute.
That's
They
that's
went
what
for
we're
lower
wondering.
pay, and
So one of the things that Ms. Hodges is doing this year, she's doing stay interviews. So I don't know how many she's done so far, but she's been out at many of our schools doing these stay interviews. These are teachers that are high-performing teachers, and she's asking them why they've stayed. What else?
what we're doing well, what we can do better, and what do we need to do to keep them here.
And once she finishes that, she'll present the information to the school board on what she's found. So looking forward to the compilation
very
of that
helpful.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we filled 98 teacher positions, 6 school counselors. If you look to the right, there were 78 of these positions that were new to SCPS. And then in September of this year, these are the positions that remained unfilled. So I want you to pay in particular attention to the number of special ed teachers, 4, and school counselors at 6. Elementary teachers, this is, there were 8. And then this, when I said I compared to Frederick and Rockingham, there's our salaries compared to theirs, and this is this year's salary scale. You'll notice with 0 years of experience, we're slightly higher than Frederick County, a little lower than Rockingham, and then Frederick County is a little more than us after that, and I only went up to year 19. But I have the whole salary scale compared that I'll share at a later date.
Frederick County doesn't get any raises from year 2 to year 6?
Yeah. So during the recession of 2010, 2011, a lot of scales, they called it compressed, were compressed. So, and that happened to a lot of divisions. We fixed our compression 3 years ago, I believe, so that we didn't have teachers that were on, or staff that were on a scale that was 0, 1 to 4, 5 to 7. So we separated that, but some school divisions are still working on uncompressing their scales.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that happens when you don't have money to give pay increases. Kaylin, do you have anything else to add to that?
It's important to give your staff, especially your teaching staff, a step each year, because that's what progresses them on the scale. When you don't give teachers a step, that's what causes compression.
Thank you.
And then our health insurance. This is us compared to Frederick and Rockingham. And employee only, you will see that we are, we're competitive there. Employee plus spouse, we're competitive. Employee plus family, we still have a little work to do, but we made a lot of ground over the last 3.5 years. We started that, it was at $1,249, and now for a family plan, and now we're down to $803. So that's $450 that's in our employees' pockets at the end of the day. We still have work to do. And then here are our rates from 2023, 24 compared to 24, 25. So you'll see employee plus family, we improved that by a little over $100, and we made a little bit of a difference on employee plus child. In health insurance and salaries have been two areas where I have focused a lot of funds in the last 4 years, 3.5 years. So then the budget process, the Code of Virginia 22.1-92 says that we must submit a needs-based budget to our appropriating body, which is our Board of Supervisors, each year. And then Code 15.2-2503 says that we have to submit it to the Board of Supervisors by April the first day of April of each year. And our timeline has us doing that. I think we submit it to them sometime in March, for if our timeline goes as scheduled. And here's our timeline. So this evening we have the pre-budget public hearing and the work session. On February the 13th, you will have my proposed budget, and you'll have your budget book at that meeting. February 22nd is the General Assembly concludes. We'll have a work session on February the 24th. And then we will meet with our Board of Supervisors to talk about what we believe our requests are going to be sometime between February and March. That date's to be determined, March 13th, when we approve it. And then the Board of Supervisors establishes a tax rate, and then they do their public hearing, and then they adopt a budget. And then our final work session is on April the 28th. And then our budget starts July the 1st. So our first approval for the budget is March the 13th. And then the Board of Supervisors will say, this is what Shenandoah County Public Schools is going to get. So then on April the 28th, we will have to revise our budget. And then we will send out contracts first part of May 10th, 12th, 14th to our staff after we have an approved budget. So where do we get our revenue? And this has been, a topic of conversation. For federal, we get about 1.3 million. State, 48.6 million. And then local is 35 million. Our technology fund is about 500,000, where we support the county government with their technology. Our capital improvement last year was 3.3 million. And then other, which is in our special budgets, is about 343,000. So you can see on the pie chart there that the majority of our funds, a little over about 55% comes from the state. The federal is less than 2%, so 1.5%, and then our county is 39.3%, which is right there. So you'll see our federal revenue has remained pretty static over the last 8-9 years, except for the year 21-22, and in that number there was some CARES funds that were attributed to that year in our federal funds. Our state funds, we talked about this a little bit last year, come from our local composite index, and our local composite index increased not quite 4% last year, which meant that we had state funds were a little less than $2 million than we would have had our local composite index not increased by 4%. And you will see how the local composite index is created. It is by the true property value, and the true property value here in Shenandoah County went up significantly from the previous LCI to the last LCI. I think that's when we did reassessments for our property. So, and the LCI is calculated every 2 years. So We will get, this is the second year of this LCI, and then we will, we usually get information about this time, about our LCI for next year. This time next year, we'll receive what our new LCI is. But adjusted gross income is another factor that's considered, and then our taxable retail sales, you'll see minimal increase there. It's only weighted 10% though. True value property is 50%, adjusted gross income is 40%, and then our retail sales, our taxable retail sales is about 10%. So our state funding would have been $2 million more last year if our LCI wouldn't have increased by 3.96%. And in your budget book from last year, we weren't the only division that increased. There were like 66 divisions that increased, 66 divisions that decreased, and the others remained the same. So there's this balancing act every biennium when it comes to LCI. And then here is our local funding for operational. And you'll just note that this does not include CIP or technology funds. So there's been a slight increase over the last 8 years in local funds. So where do we spend our money? Almost 90% of our money is spent on salaries and benefits, so it's people. Materials and supplies, about 3%. Miscellaneous fees, about 3%. Professional services, about 3%. Capital, a little less than 1%. So state budget information. On December the 18th, Governor Youngkin made proposed amendments to his biennial budget, and this wasn't an amendment, but he maintained the 3% proposed raise for school division employees. And then he did some technical updates to reflect actual student enrollment and demographics. And then he updated lottery proceeds and sales tax based on recent performance. And part of his proposed 24-26 biennial budget, sales tax revenue was updated. He provided funding for lab schools, and Shenandoah County is a partner in 2 of the lab schools. One is a teacher prep program. It's the Teacher Academy, which will start for us next year, and one is with George Mason University, and it's with technology. So we are part of 2 lab schools at this time. Governor Youngkin proposed to develop a new state assessment system, which will replace our current assessment system. All right, so the next slide is are the things that we have been considering here as far as our focus. So
Before you go on, so I saw that about a month ago that Youngkin was talking about a $139 million enhancement for building projects.
mm-hmm,
And if that comes to fruition,
mm-hmm.
I assume that's sometime in the near future, but is that up to the legislature to buy into that this session, or when does that get squared away with the legislature?
Yep. So Dr. Heingartner and I both looked into that, and I think it's already been allocated. If I'm remembering correctly, they are going to send out information the first, like February, and school divisions will have to apply. What we're unsure of is whether our projects have to be ready for actual construction, or can we just be on the continuum of planning for them. And I don't think we've got a real clear answer about that. So we're waiting on that information. Based on the information that I know is the last time that this was done, school divisions could get 10, 20, or 30%, but it's based on, Ms. Campbell,
Fiscal distress.
fiscal distress. So a county's fiscal distress. So,
We are not distressed.
no. However, there were some school divisions that did receive $7 million for a building project that weren't fiscally distressed either. But, you know, it'll depend on what the criteria is. So we're continuing to look for it because we want to be on board to hop onto that whenever it's ready and available.
That's kind of strange that during our planning process, it might just be that we catch the cog in the wheel, but we can't plan for it,
Right.
because it could be either or.
So we're keeping our eyes open for that, the release of that information. So you'll notice I have separated into three kind of buckets, if you will: compensation and benefits, new positions, and increase existing costs. So under compensation and benefits, you will notice I included either a step plus a 2% scale increase or a 3.16% scale increase, and those are the same dollar figure. So they would cost, our budget would take the same number for both of those. Health insurance, we're anticipating a 12% increase, but I would also like to continue to increase our employer contribution for employee plus children, employee plus family. That's that number that was at $803. I would like to get them closer to where Frederick and Rockingham are. We had a teacher who was interested in coming to Shenandoah County, and she was all on board until she found out what our family plan was. It was a special ed teacher, and she just said she couldn't take that hit. And yeah, which is understandable because that's real money in our employees' pockets. I'm going to let Kaylin Campbell explain the hourly, align hourly pay for bus drivers a little bit. So
Sure. Our current salary scales, while initially are based on an hourly rate, once you increase the hours expectation for a bus driver, it no longer aligns with the hourly rate. It becomes a percentage uplift for the total salary. What we're hoping to do here is align with hourly rates the whole way across to make it very clear and transparent how bus drivers are being compensated.
and when you were doing research on that, that has been the practice since 2015, I believe. So it's not something new. It's been in place, and we're trying to correct something that to align the hourly rate for our bus drivers. And then the next bulleted item is align athletic director pay with responsibilities. Currently, our athletic director pay is on scale 4 or grade 4, where our assistant principals are on grade 2, and for high school. And our athletic director responsibilities align with our assistant principal responsibilities at our high schools. They are required to do discipline. They're required to make really tough decisions. They're required to manage students. So we would like to align the athletic director pay with their responsibilities. And then the last bullet is targeted retention sign-on stipend. So when we looked at our positions that remained vacant, our special ed teachers and our school counselors were two that we have difficult time filling. So what the consideration could be is that we give our special ed teachers a retention bonus, and then anybody who signs up to be a special ed teacher, then they get a sign-on bonus. So, I'm just throwing that out there. It's worth discussion. Some of the other divisions that are around us are doing something very similar. The other School counselors is another place where we have a difficult time filling our vacant positions, and it's such a critical need in our school system. So in our schools, that would be another place that we would consider doing a sign-on or retention bonus. So just, kind of throwing that out there for consideration. The other consideration is when we looked at the teachers that we're losing, we noticed that it was plus 10 years of experience or plus 20 years of experience. So is there an opportunity, just like we have stipends for teachers to get a master's degree or teachers to get a master's plus 30, is there an opportunity for us to put in a stipend for teachers who have been with us for 20 years, or teachers, a number, and so that could be an opportunity for us as well to say, hey, we appreciate you staying in Shenandoah County for 20 years, so this is what we're considering. So that's another thought that we're considering. So,
Which would save us money in the long run, because we're not having to train new teachers, and these are people who already know our system, so.
yeah. So any questions about that before we move on? So, at the end of the day, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to prioritize, because, we only have so much money. So, any questions about compensation and benefits before we move on to new positions?
So are you going to be able to give us, like if we want to do the second option and prioritize this, are we going to be able to identify what those positions would be? Like this type of teacher? And so we'll have that before we have the discussion and all that. Okay.
So you will receive my recommendation on, I think it's February the 13th. And then we'll have a work session on, at the end of February, it's maybe the 23rd, I'm not sure exactly what day it is, where you guys give me your feedback. And then March the 13th, then we should be at a point where we're ready to approve a budget.
So the February one would have those two options that you just talked about. Okay.
Yep. New positions. You noticed that we had increase in our students, our English learner students, and we have to increase, this is to align with the updated state standards of quality, 5 English learner teachers. And Ms. Proctor, do you want to talk about where those positions would go?
Mostly to the southern campus. Ashby-Lee would get 1.5. That half position would be split with Norfolk. Norfolk would get the other half. Stonewall would get a full-time position. Peter Millenburg would get a full-time position. And then the other position is already at the northern campus, but I'm paying for it out of our Title I, and we can't pay for it out of Title I anymore. That would be considered supplanting. So that position would need to come into the local budget. So that one's at Sandy Hook.
So that's not a choice. We have to do that one, so you will see that one again.
Of course, required, but the state doesn't offer to pay for it. It's funny how that works.
Is that state or federal? State?
What was the
Do you know
state?
it's
State
set-
or federal?
It's state.
State.
State. Okay.
And then we currently, Claude Moore paid for our OTPT teacher this school year, so that needs to come into our local budget if we're going to continue that program, and we've had great success with that. So yes, we do want to continue that program, but Claude Moore Foundation is not going to pay for it next year. And then we currently added a assistant principal, and we paid for that with our All in Virginia funds. So if we're going to keep that assistant principal, then we need to fund it in our local budget. One of the considerations is if we want to add the aviation program at Triplet Tech, then we need a half-time teacher there at Triplet. And I am working with someone that maybe they will fund it, just like the Claude Moore did for the OTPT position. We may have this funded for one year, but then we'll have to pick that up in a following year. So we'll see how those conversations go. The next item down there is add 4 bus drivers, which will reduce our double runs. And when you talk to our principals, that is one of the most difficult things that they have to do is with double runs, because there are kids that are staying there for 30, 40 minutes after, all of the kids leave. There's still kids there. And our teachers are on a 7.5-hour day, is that right? So we have to find coverage to make sure that we are taking care of those students. And then the 3 student support specialists that were decreased from the budget for this school year, I've included them there. And then a transportation assistant, which would help out Mr. Long in his absences. So it would be a supervisor or a specialist position. Any questions about those?
Just one comment. I was in Richmond yesterday with the legislative roundtable, and it's just talking to some people who have just begun to create technical education aviation programs through the roof. And the students, I mean, if they have 10 slots, they got 90 people. And if this, happening up at Frederick and places like that. So this is something we could get started sooner rather than later. We could, excuse my term, cash in too. I mean, this is a highly coveted educational track. So, but my take on this is the new positions here seem to be very well thought out.
And then moving on to the last column there, increase of existing cost. And you'll notice school budgets here. Peter Muhlenberg, you notice they increased 80 students over the last 2 years, but we haven't increased the money that they have in their local school budget. So we need to do that. And then Triplet Tech, they've increased in number of students as well, but their price of their product is going up too. So culinary has went up, a dozen eggs has went up, or a gallon of milk has went up. So we increased them a little bit last year, but we still need to increase them a little more so they're able to do the things that they've done over the last, continue to offer their programs. And then the transportation, this year, I'm looking at Mr. Long, this year we are replacing all of the cameras on all of our buses to be updated, and we have to maintain that software. So that's we're going to have to continue to purchase that software over the next many years. So
that is correct. And our technicians are doing hardware install to save as well.
Yeah. So, and that will eliminate the hard drives on the buses.
Yes.
And our principals will actually be able to access that camera footage from their office instead of having to go to the bus, get the hard drive out, and
or our technicians
yes.
being taken from their duties to support that system as well.
Be happy to answer any of those questions. I think, again, here's the timeline. So there's the dates. February the 13th, I will propose a budget to you. February the 24th, we will talk about it. We will say, yeah, I like this one. No, I don't like this. I didn't see this, but I hope before the 24th, you'll come to me and say, hey, I didn't see this, and I would like to see a number, because then we can calculate it before we get to the meeting, so that we have those numbers, so that on March the 13th, we can actually have a budget approval. thoughts, questions, concerns? All right. Thank you.
Dr. Hungardner.
All right, we'll transition to the capital improvement plan and just kind of take a few minutes to update you on that. As you recall, there a month or 2 months ago, I gave you the first rendition, kind of talked about it just in a 50,000-foot view. I've placed at your seats the entire capital improvement plan document. Online, it is electronic, but I've given it to you in 3 stapled sections just to make referencing it and looking at it easier for you. The first section is simply the narrative. It gives a lot of information on how the CIP is developed. Some summary information about transportation and summary information about the total amount of the CIP. One thing I would want to point out that is new to this section is on page 11 of that first document that has capital improvement plan written on the front of it. If you look on page 11, what's a new section there references launching a long-term facilities plan. We had not had that before because we did not have a long-term facilities plan. And as you know, that's coming to closure here before long, where we will have that plan. And so I just wanted to reference that in that little section there on page 11 that you can read, of course, at your leisure, but it talks about how that plan could then inform the CIP. So look at that, and if you have any questions, then we can certainly talk about it at some point, but we can talk about it now too if you wanted to. But the vehicle listing is also part of that first stapled section. But I know we want to get to the meat and potatoes, so let's look at the second stapled section. It has a yellow heading. It's a completely separate stapled document, and it has a yellow header. These are the modernization options that I shared with you a few weeks ago. There's only one, there's a couple changes that were made to them. First of all, that bottom box that shows elementary schools, new elementary school, middle school, high school, that information is new. That was not there as part of the original presentation. So we wanted to add that so that you had some figures right in front of you that were based on 2024 cost, so that you could kind of do some figuring on your own. When you see square footage, okay, this is about what the square footage is, this is what it's costing, you can kind of do some figuring on your own. One major, or one big addition is the third page. Prior to this, they only had 2 options. And of course, this is all draft, and this is just some thinking. It's not the way it's set in stone, of course. This is just to try and drive conversation. It's trying to drive ideas. It's trying to show different ways of looking at things. And that's certainly what you do as a board. But the first option, option A, that's based on the hierarchy and of the phases and which schools or facilities are in what year is based on the facilities condition index, if you recall that. Worst facilities first kind of mindset. The second option took that same approach but overlaid it with the oldest facilities that haven't been renovated. So you can see that kind of drove the elementary schools a little further up that phase approach. Well, the third option, the new option, takes that one step further and basically just says, let's triage these in a way that might embrace our most neediest facilities. Forget about facilities index, forget about we know, and as you can see there in the very first, and I just started with 2025, as if we really want to take this serious and try to do something. Well, we've talked about new elementary school, we've talked about Triplett Tech, you know. Now, again, these are just ideas. This isn't you know, set in stone. These are just ideas to drive conversation, to drive thinking. You may want to come back to us and say, you know what, I like this, but can we move this? Could we add this? Could we change this? Could we look at different years for different things? And this is your document. We're just trying to give you some information to start the flow of thought around having a long-term facilities plan, something that we have wanted to have for many years. And so this is an effort in that direction. The third stapled, I'm sorry, okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Pardon my ignorance here, but, so if we were to do, for example, a new elementary school, so that's something we just include in the budget, it doesn't have to be going to a separate
No,
request?
and that's something I should have said from the beginning. This is totally separate from what Dr. Shepard just went over. All right, that's operational, and that's one pile of money. The CIP is purely its own standalone pot of money, and that's purely from our Board of Supervisors.
But we include any new build in there, so it's not just whatever we're fixing, it's any new
Oh,
builds go in
absolutely, and
there.
that's exactly right. And so where it says, you know, new elementary, that's what it's referring to. Yeah, that would be a new build. And as a matter of fact, I had new build in there, and it took up so much space in that I took the word build out of there. But that's exactly right.
And I would like to say that this probably needs to follow our budget process, because when we submit our budget to the Board of Supervisors, we also submit our capital improvement to our Board of Supervisors. So, and they have, some of the members of the Board of Supervisors have been asking for a long-term facilities plan. So, you know, I think we need to take a deep dive into this and say, I really like option A, or I really like option C, and look at, you know, the years that we have attributed to them and say, well, I don't know the number of years, maybe it's 2 or 3. Okay, maybe it's not 2 or 3, maybe it's 4 or 5, but, you know, I think we should move forward and adopt something so that our Board of Supervisors kind of know where we're at. Yeah.
And that's a very good point. I looked at a 25-year period, basically. But obviously, it could be 50 year, you know, it could be 35 years, whatever, you know, we feel like would be doable. But that's all for discussion and points for you all to decide on. All right, the last thing, and really the meat and potatoes of our daily work CIP is that last section that's stapled together that has a red header at the very top. And so again, this, one thing I wanted to make sure, I forgot to mention also, is the document that you received or got electronically the first time, the figures have changed a little bit. All right, I found a mistake in that I didn't realize was in there the first time. And then we've edited some of this to move things into different years. So if you have any printed out documents laying at home, you know, make sure you don't reference those. This is the newest, most up-to-date version. So you can see through there the things that we have listed, the estimated cost, and then the year that it is planned for. And again, I'll tell you the same thing that I said a few weeks ago. You know, this is for you to look at and for you to say, you know, can we move this from year 25, 26? Can we move it to a year later on out? Or can we move something that you see that might be in 27, 28? Can we move that sooner? You know, those are all the kinds of things that we would take your feedback on and you know, and edit this. You know, at the end of the day, you see how much money we're talking about in the tally.
The priority levels, urgent, necessary, and then the lowest is desirable, correct?
That's right.
And
That's
I know in past years, we've typically, you know, based off the money we get, it seems like urgent is usually, we definitely get to that, or at least almost always, and then some necessary, and then kind of goes through a,
That's right. That's exactly right. You know, many times the desirable, unfortunately, you know, doesn't get funded. And what's unfortunate about it is that the desirable then becomes a necessary because it continues to erode
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, you know,
It
and then it
eventually
becomes
gets
an
there.
urgent, you know.
yeah.
But the reality of it is, we can only do with what the amount of money that we have to do it, and that's what folks do to the best of their ability.
Hey, let me drop back to the three options for the long-term facilities modernization. It's a remarkable document, because you're looking way out. And yet, when we come down to it, we're going to have to salami slice it down year by year. And so it would require a buy-in for a long-term approach that clearly we're going to have to be in league with the Board of Supervisors. But is it also, I mean, it's also kind of scary to think that when you're committed to that and you don't know what enrollment's going to be like or what the economy's going to look like or whatever when you've committed that far out. But it's remarkably adept at being able to do the two things we want to do is look out there and still apply it to a year-by-year annual budget. So,
Well, you know, we absolutely require yearly maintenance, no question about it. The way things change, the circumstances that our facilities find themselves in daily, it would definitely will take year by year, you know, maintenance, tweaking, and a plan makes, you know what, we're going to have to adjust this, you know, absolutely.
I've been part of a long-term facilities plan, and it was a 15-year facilities plan. It ended up being 20 couple years, but what happened is there was a recession along the way, and you know, a building didn't get completed, maybe in 3 years, it took 4, you know, something like that. But everything stayed on it, it just moved down just slightly, so, yeah.
so flexibility along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I really don't have a whole lot more to say about the last section there, the actual CIP projects that you see. We've tried to, you know, again, I'll just mention real quick, you know, we've gone around with every head custodian and every principal, talked to them in their buildings, got their feedback. So, you know, feel good about, I'm sure there's probably something out there that needs to be on here that's not, and if it is, then we'll absolutely get it on there, but,
I have another question. Can we get, because for example, if we're still thinking about triplet, we may be building new or we may be renovating, then if we did that, there's a lot of things around here for triplet that we wouldn't have to fix now.
That's right.
That's right.
So is there a way that we could like separate that so that we can have a total amount and just kind of, asterisk, if we do decide to do the new triplet or renovate, then we don't need to make those expenses right now?
I will caveat that, if I may, that some things will depend on timeline. If we say go on triplet, but in 5 years, we still may need to do some of these.
Right, but at least we would know, because if we're building new or renovating right away, then at least we can kind of play with that. But no, I understand what you're saying, yeah. But at least it would give us it would help us decide also which
Right.
way would make more sense.
And quite honestly, that's the predicament we've kind of found ourselves in for the past number of years. I'm going to say close to 10 years. Do we want to spend several $100,000s on this school or that school when we might renovate it?
Right.
And the word might is like in all capital letters. It continues to be a might, And at some point in time, we have to do it, even if we want to turn around and renovate them.
But even that may help us decide which
Right.
way to go. Yeah.
Sure.
So I had calculated the urgent out of just the 25, 26, and it's 3.392 million.
And what was it that we got last year?
3.323. Yeah, so it's within 60,000.
3.39?
It's 3.392, and then we got 3.323.
Am I missing something in here? I see where we're replacing the carpet with LVT tile at Ashby Lee, but I don't see anything about Sandy Hook. Am I missing that, or was that missed in the CIP?
I have to look. A lot of it's already been replaced, but they may have some that hasn't been, but I'll look at that. Some of the spaces, it's kind of been a request to keep carpet, like music spaces, places like that. But I'll look at that, because that's our, an overall goal is to, quite honestly, get rid of as much carpet as we can. So I'll look into that. Yeah, if there's carpet, and we got rid of a bunch of it last summer, as we're really trying to move away from carpet in any of the schools. Like I said, except for the band room, band and acoustics, they really asked to that. But other than that, we're trying to get rid of all the carpet.
Any other questions? Thoughts?
Dave, thanks. That's quite an outreach.
Well, it's a team effort. There's a lot of people involved in helping put this together.
Good stuff. Thank you. Dr. Shepherd, we're going to talk about committee assignments. Is that right?
So in order to maximize board member impact, the board has established committees. And the board is also represented on various committees, entities, and organizations. Policy BCE, school board committees, says that the school board will assign school board members to various standing committees. The recommendation is to discuss the committee assignments at the January 8th meeting, and then tonight to finalize those committee assignments.
So we made some considerable progress the last time we talked, and I've done a spreadsheet that is slightly simpler than Dr. Heingartner's. So I'm going to ask my stalwart cohort if you'd pass these out as far as they'll go. and, but certainly the school board members. And then just pass one back to me. Thank you. Did you get one of these, Dr. Shepherd? Okay, so committee assignments are kind of a mixed bag because there are a few, I think there are 9 that are standing committees. There's a functional committee, and there are committees that have to do with representatives to other boards. And they're all important. They all do important stuff. And so we have, in essence, 17 committees that we need to, in quotes. I actually know that there are divisions in the state that don't have committees at all. They just don't do it. And everybody looks at things on their own and kind of chips in from there. I think we saw this last year, that having some continuity in these areas has paid off, and I'll say that I think this last year, 2024, probably saw greater participation of school board members in their own committee assignments than in the recent, I'll just say in the recent past. And I'm pretty confident in saying that. So we've got some very active and proactive school board members to look at these. I have this little short circuit spreadsheet here, only to indicate the number of committees that people are on. And so we only have 1 or 2 per committee, generally the person who is the principal and person who is an alternate. But there are several committees where it's not just enough to have the alternate. The second person on the committee has to be kind of an integral part of that committee. Now, the 2 I could think of offhand is, one is personnel, that encompasses so many actions and activities. The other is policy review, which requires a lot of going over policies in conjunction with a central staff, such that we can actually make progress on them. And the other one I added kind of subjectively on my own, Mr. Vance, is the ones have to do with special ed, because you happen to be on 2 of those, and that is obviously, not obviously, but it's an emerging and a high-profile area where continuity of thought and action, I think, is important. So so it looked like, you know, when you look at the number of those in the lead, now unless it's changed, Tom, have you down for four lead positions, and I think your activities over the last year have indicated that you've taken that seriously. You've done quite a lot in that. So I'm not sure. So I'm guessing at the moment you're still the chair, if you will, for the 4 that are still indicated on our 2024 list. If that's different, I need to know that. But Gloria's pointed out that she had quite a number of these. Now, we each kind of ponied up and volunteered for some things we'd like to do, we thought we'd be good at, and not everybody could get first choice, but it kind of fell out pretty well. And she made it clear last time we met that with the assignments, she would like to divest herself of the agent to approve Bill's alternate, and Mr. Vance has volunteered to take that over as the alternate. And so that kind of rounds us out a little bit better than we were in 2024, and only leaves us probably one area where we probably have to make a change, and that is that another one that Gloria would like to divest herself of is the finance and budget one. So I had a question to Mr. Gutschall, as the chair of that committee, is how would we function, how would you function with no alternate there? Do you need one? How much do you need one? And I'm also going to look at the superintendent and ask you, Dr. Shepherd, if you've been through this a long time, if any of these look like we really shouldn't let them go wanting, maybe you could give us your experience or your recommendation. But let me ask Mr. Gutschall first how he feels about being the chair of that with no alternate.
I think it would still work operationally. I mean, it helps to have another set of eyes in the room, but I don't think it would cause any catastrophic issues.
And an alternate generally is somebody who is there if you can't be there anyway. In other words, let me pick an example that I've had happen in the past. The representative to County Parks and Recreation. We don't have a lot to do necessarily with what they do, but it's nice to go to their meetings and see what crossover and what, and just see what they're up to, because they use a lot of our facilities, et cetera, et cetera. But whoever goes to it doesn't have to necessarily be an expert, but can be somebody who goes there. And so if, so that would be, so Tom, if you can't make it to that, but you knew that Gloria or Mike could, and you say, can you cover that meeting and so forth, there would really generally not have to be anything they'd have to be brought up to speed on, but just something they could attend and let us know if there was anything germane to the school board. And so that's kind of the way I see that, and that's the way it would probably work out for you, is that you could ask anybody else on the board to step in for you if it was now I'm not sure that works for finance, but so that's my question to you.
Yeah, it's not anything complicated.
Okay. And so Dr. Shepherd, do you have any feelings about that?
I'm just going to concur with Mr. Gutschall that it's nice to have two people there to, have a conversation, then, yeah.
And when I say it's not complicated, I'm not saying finance is not. I'm saying our role as a member of that committee, it's primarily we're looking over CIP and giving our feedback and those things.
Okay. So if you would be comfortable with that, and the school board would be given notice that they might get a call from you, one of us, to take that on, because you can't make everything all the time, so that would be understandable. Then if that would be the case, and everybody is happy with the assignments that they've had, other than that, we could just declare this a done deal the way it is. But that would take a consensus. That is, nobody could be in non-concurrence with that. Does anybody have any problem with that?
I would like to ask Tom about the Parks and Rec. Every meeting I go to, they ask if you're going to still be the primary on that.
That's what I say, if it's okay with you, because is there any way him and I could swap to make it even?
Well,
So far, I've been the one
he's
that
been
makes
going to
all
all the
those
meetings.
meetings.
that's great with me, if that's what you guys would like to do. If between the two of you, we can
So you have their meetings early,
make that
earlier.
switch. And now you're back with the rest of the mortals like us, and you only have leadership of 3 instead of 4. So anyway, but I appreciate that. That's helpful. And we'll, so Cheryl, if we can capture that, the fact that Mr. Street will no longer be the chair for, if you want to call it a chair, I guess we will, for the Shenandoah County Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and that slot will now move to Mr. Rickard. And then the other is that there will be no formal alternate for the Finance Committee. I think we're good to go, unless, again, is there any other discussion?
So we don't have a list of the actual proposals. So it's basically the last year and then
Yeah.
just those changes.
I've got one copy here, but
Yeah,
I'm sure we have others. But
Oh, no, but this is the old one.
That's
No, I-
2024.
Yeah, I was wondering if we had a new one with the changes already.
No, I just
Okay.
wanted, the idea was to find
Yeah.
out tonight what those
That's
changes
okay.
would be.
So we'll put it together in the morning and post it on Board Docs tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, so I just want to formally, and again, we haven't passed it as such, but there's a consensus among the 6 board members. What we just articulated is the way we'd like to go. And when Cheryl captures that and puts it on, we'll consider it not official, but if anybody has any demur or discussion, we can discuss it.
Clarify, Shenandoah County Parks and Rec Advisory Board, Mike is now going to be the primary, Mike Rickard,
That's correct.
and Lori Carlenio and Tom Street will be alternates.
That was the one where we had 2 alternates, and if we want to keep it that way, that's fine. Yes.
And then the other change is agent to approve bills. That's Larry Vance as the alternate agent. And finance and budget, CIP, Kyle Gutschall is the only representative
Yeah.
there.
And we had that particular move of having Mr. Vance take the agent to approve bills as the alternate agent. We've already discussed that previously, but we want to lock that in now.
The list you have is from last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that does it. School board norms, Dr. Shepherd.
So this is the opportunity for us to talk about the school board norms. I have, there's our adopted policy on Board Docs, or our adopted norms on Board Docs, and then a proposal. I received a recommendation for a change from Ms. Carlenio last evening that she can talk about. But the intent is to request this for approval at the February 13th meeting. So now's the opportunity to talk through that.
Okay, and I think each of us have received at this point Gloria's input for that, correct?
I think so.
I have a one-word change I'd like to suggest. Should I do that now? This is the night I'm going to keep it simple.
The superintendent or his, her designee, is that your word
No,
change?
no,
Oh, okay.
no,
Well, I
no.
have another word change then.
Oh, do you? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Just one word though.
Well, good. Okay, why don't you go with yours
Okay.
first? Go ahead.
So, just to be proper, the bottom paragraph, request for information from principals and staff, it says the superintendent or his designee. So, get that corrected so we can be proper there.
Okay. And my suggested change will be under how we govern, second bullet under that, or the second heading under that is school board meetings. And the second bullet there is the chair will continuously poll the members regarding agenda or report items. This isn't going to be as, never mind. So continuously, I would like to strike that word and instead insert the word continually. Continually instead of continuously. And I'll give you some rationale very quickly and then I'll be done. Continuously means without a pause or interruption of any kind. So somebody works continuously for 6 hours or don't take a break, or somebody's talking for minutes on end without appearing to take a breath, it's continuously. Continually is something that happens repeatedly. So it happens often, but it doesn't happen like continuously, consistently all the time. I know it sounds like a small matter, but there is a difference in meaning that apparently can be meaningful. So I would move to, not move, but I'm suggesting that we consider replacing the word continuously with the word continually. It's my only suggested change. Any other discussions on the school board norms? So we have one action item this evening. And it is the dealing with the library policy 2BP, and we have before us tonight the culmination of that recent process, in which December 5th, the subcommittee, the Parent Community Advisory Committee, met and discussed the 5 books that were requested for reconsideration. The 5 books are listed there. The 5 books that were listed, submitted for reconsideration, came out of that committee, and with a recommendation that 3 be removed from the final approved library materials purchase list. And those 3 titles are listed there.
Just
Go
quick
ahead.
question, Chairman. Was Gloria going to give us a presentation on her changes to the board norms?
Yeah, I was wondering if,
I think Dr. Shepard had hinted to it, but I...
Oh, I'm sorry, I asked if everybody had gotten it,
Oh, okay.
but we can certainly go over it
well,
now.
no, if there's no questions about that, we can, just,
Okay.
so we're gonna be discussing that later, or at the next
Well,
meeting?
we're gonna be discussing the board norms for approval. Are we doing it, is it scheduled for the February meeting?
February 13th.
Okay. So we are all under advisement at this point to check out the suggestions that Gloria's put forward, the word that I've done, and the politically correct word that that Kyle put in there. So if we're all good with that, we'll just take a look at our
Okay, so we'll get a list of proposals at the next meeting, and then we'll be able to discuss them.
yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, a good point of clarification. I'm gonna, unless there's anybody wants to have discussion ahead, I'm asking for a motion to approve the 2025 spring, oh, wait a minute, I'm asking for a motion to that effect, that we accept the 3 books that were to be removed.
You're asking for a motion?
I'm asking for a motion, yes.
On the school library book?
Yes.
I move to approve the 2025 spring final approved library materials purchase list as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Rickard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Carlinio. Discussion. Hearing none? We'll call for the question. It's not. And I'm not, we're in a work session. I'm not sure we have to do a roll call, should we, Cheryl?
We can do a roll call.
I know we can do, okay, let's do a roll call, okay.
Mr. Street?
Yes.
Ms. Carlinio?
Yes.
Mr. Gutschall?
Yes.
Mr. Vance?
Yes.
Mr. Rickard?
Yes.
And Mr. Barlow?
Yes. So we'll indicate that that was a unanimous decision, not a consensus, but unanimous decision by the board. And I think the only thing we have at this point are school board member comments. Is that correct? Anything else first? Anybody want to go first? Mike, you want to go for it?
I guess. First, I want to thank Ms. Stratton I went to the Special Education Advisory Committee meeting last night, and I feel like this might be the time to bring it up, but we're talking about the budget. And man, you want to talk about a wealth of information, the stuff I learned last night attending that meeting. I really think we need to start a conversation of maybe, because we have a hard time filling those special education teacher positions, maybe if we could start a different pay scale for special education teachers. The workload that they have compared to a regular teacher is unreal, and Dr. Shepard even commented last night at the meeting that we do have teachers with special education credentials that are not teaching as special education teachers, and maybe if we had that other pay scale, it would attract some of those teachers to come back over to the special education side. It may even attract some really good teachers from the outside if we had that differing pay scale. When you talk about the workload that's on those teachers compared to the regular teachers, it's unreal. And I never realized it until last night. And then, I mean, we think about special education. You think about a child has one specific special need, but I learned last night there's some students that we have that have 3 different special needs. And we have to accommodate all those special needs. So I'd just like to start a conversation on that, and for us to give some thought on that. I think it'd be a good idea of a way to retain those teachers and maybe even attract some highly qualified ones. Something we can look at, something we can talk about, maybe a solution to our SPED issues. Other than that, I really don't have anything, I don't think.
Okay. I'm going to go right around the horn if you don't mind.
I'm
Vance?
good.
Okay. Mr. Cottrell?
Just looking forward to the rest of the year. Obviously, I made a decision today to announce that I'm going to be running for Board of Supervisors this year for 2026. So look forward to serving with you all the rest of the year, and then hope to continue working alongside the school board in a different capacity moving forward.
Cool. Mr. Street?
Nothing really. I just want to throw out, I know the weather's been a challenge here, and I just want to thank everybody that affects and decision making and trying to deal with the cold weather. And I know it's tough, but I want to thank those that, for dealing with it and getting through it. So that's all.
I don't have much to say. I just wanted to thank Ms. Weinking for always coming here and keeping us abreast of all this stuff that I would otherwise not know. And every meeting I want to say thanks, but by the time we get to talk, you're gone. So I'm glad that you're here, that I can actually tell you thank you for all that.
First thing, I wanted to address the fact that I want to thank Dr. Shepard for sending out the information today about the fact that we didn't have the any positive action on our request to dismiss the NAACP suit. But I do have some concerns in what I read, and from what I've read, Gloria has some of the same concerns. And so I'm going to be calling our attorney tomorrow with some questions about what happened, certain things that were articulated. Where do we go from here, some other things. So since I'm the point of contact for him, if you have any questions you want me to send forward to him or ask him tonight or tomorrow morning, I need it quick because his window is tomorrow and I want to get him kind of quick. So any questions you have about, and even if you don't, want to specifically ask something about it, if there's just something you want to know about time frame or anything else that you'd like to ask about it, this is my time to ask Mr. Gwynn where we go from here. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that and I hate to say this after we've just talked about committees, but the SBMA had a roundtable yesterday with some of our legislators and with some lawyers to talk about various things about the drug problem in school and Title IX and some other things that are really going to change quickly with this new administration, which is going to be kind of interesting and probably some fun if you like that fun. But there was a lot of you know Josh Hetzler. He came up with a really good suggestion for school board members, which is he stressed the fact that it was a lot easier for school board members to try to get a bill sponsored than it would be for a regular citizen, in that the legislators already kind of pay attention to school board members who are public officials, number one. And he offered up the Family Foundation as an organization that could help write the bills and provide their good offices for places to go in and kind of use a headquarters when we visit our legislators. And I know a lot of times we've run into something that could be done if there was just a law that would allow us to do it. And he had some interesting points on how we could do that most effectively. So he recommended that we develop a legislative committee that would take a look at the things. Now I know that we have a process whereby we look at legislation that's coming along, but this would be more dedicated to would be monitoring some of those legislative changes, but also give us the ability to perhaps suggest legislation that could be sponsored by a senator or a delegate, and he had various tips for how to do that. We obviously couldn't do that for this year because they've got a very truncated session that's going to end in just a couple of weeks. But these bills pretty much would have to be written in some basic form in late summer. So we may want to think about anything we would like to kind of clear the way for things that we think would be important to do. And so we may want to think about forming if you will, a legislative committee that might work with Family Foundation or anybody else who would, you know, our own legislators about if not coming up with our own sponsored bill, a bill to be sponsored, at least a way to monitor more effectively what was going on in Richmond. So anyway. I guess that's it. Can I have a motion for dismissal, adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Mr. Gutschall, thank you for that. Motion, second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Rickard. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed? We are adjourned at 8:21.
Dan.
You think I was going to say that?
Dan.
Oh, he's doing good. He's traveling. Actually, he was sick last week.